Mother Bear saw a lone human baby in a car in the forest. What she did put everyone in tears. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Every bit of your support helps us create even more amazing stories for you. The forest fell silent as the afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy. Along a narrow dirt road cutting through the wilderness, a small blue sedan sat abandoned. Inside, 6-month-old Noah Harper whimpered softly, his tiny face flushed with heat. His parents, Olivia and Benjamin Harper, had only stepped away for what was supposed to be a moment to photograph a rare flower just off the trail. They had cracked the window slightly, thinking they would return immediately. But now, 15 minutes had passed as they had become disoriented in the thick underbrush, desperately trying to find their way back to the road. Noah's cries grew stronger as the temperature inside the car steadily rose. His little hands reached out, grasping at empty air, tears streaming down his reddened cheeks. The forest seemed to listen to his distress, the wind carrying his cries deeper into the woods. Not far away, a large brown mother bear named Maple by local rangers paused her foraging. Her sharp ears perked up at the sound. It wasn't the typical forest noise, not the scurrying of small creatures or the calls of birds overhead. This sound awakened something deep within her, a maternal instinct that transcended species. The high-pitched wail reminded her of her own cubs' cries when they were in danger. Maple hesitated. Bears typically avoided human scents and structures, their natural caution keeping them safe from dangerous encounters. But something about this particular cry pulled at her. She lifted her nose to the air, catching the scent of distress mixed with the unmistakable smell of a young one. Slowly, cautiously, Maple began moving toward the sound, her powerful body navigating the forest floor with surprising grace. The cries grew louder as she approached the edge of the trees. There, on the narrow dirt road, sat the strange metal object humans traveled in. Through the glass, she could see the small, helpless figure moving inside. Noah's cries momentarily stopped as his teary eyes fixed on the massive creature approaching the car. The bear's breath fogged the window as she pressed her nose against it, curious but gentle. For a moment, bear and baby locked eyes, two souls connecting across an impossible divide. Then Noah began to cry again, his little body shaking with the effort. Maple circled the vehicle slowly, her massive paws leaving deep prints in the soft earth. With each passing minute, the air inside the car grew hotter, Noah's cries weaker. The mother bear sensed the danger. She had encountered these metal objects before, had seen humans enter and exit them through openings that appeared and disappeared. But now, those openings were sealed, trapping the small one inside. What happened next would leave even the most skeptical forest ranger questioning everything they thought they knew about wild animals and their understanding of the world around them. Maple rose onto her hind legs, towering over the sedan. Her immense frame cast a shadow over the vehicle as she placed her front paws against the window. The glass creaked under her weight. Noah's cries had grown faint now, his movements sluggish as the heat took its toll on his tiny body. The bear seemed to understand that time was running out. With careful precision that defied her size, Maple applied pressure to the partially open window. The crack widened slightly, allowing more air to flow into the stifling car. She continued this delicate work, pushing with just enough force to create an opening without shattering glass that might harm the baby. Meanwhile, Olivia and Benjamin Harper frantically pushed through the underbrush, following the sound of their son's cries. When they finally broke through to the road, the sight before them froze them in their tracks. A massive bear stood at their car, seemingly trying to break in where their baby lay trapped. "Noah!" Olivia screamed, her heart seizing with terror. Benjamin grabbed a branch from the ground, ready to defend his family despite the impossible odds. But as they watched, something extraordinary became clear. The bear wasn't trying to harm their child. She was creating ventilation. The window had been widened just enough to allow fresh air to circulate without creating any danger to the baby inside. Noah's cries had grown stronger again as cool forest air reached his overheated body. Forest Ranger Elena Diaz arrived on the scene just moments later, having been alerted by hikers who had spotted the Harpers' empty car. She raised her tranquilizer gun, then slowly lowered it as she processed the remarkable scene before her. "Don't move," she whispered to the panicked parents. "I've never seen anything like this before." The bear, sensing the humans' presence, turned her massive head toward them. There was no aggression in her posture, only a strange, almost knowing look in her deep brown eyes. She gave one final glance at the baby, now breathing more easily in the cooled car, then dropped to all fours and lumbered back into the forest. Olivia rushed to the car, tears streaming down her face as she flung the door open and gathered Noah into her arms. The baby was red-faced but alert, his cries turning to soft coos as his mother held him close. Benjamin wrapped his arms around them both, his own eyes wet with emotion. "It's impossible," Ranger Diaz said, approaching the family. "But I saw it with my own eyes. That bear saved your baby." News of the incredible rescue spread quickly through the nearby town of Pinehaven. Wildlife experts were skeptical until they reviewed footage from Ranger Diaz's body camera. The video showed clear evidence of the bear's deliberate, careful actions to help the trapped child. Dr. Marcus Whitman, a renowned animal behaviorist who studied the footage, was moved to tears. "What we're seeing here challenges everything we thought we knew about interspecies empathy. This mother bear recognized another baby in distress and acted with what can only be described as compassion." 3 days later, as the Harpers prepared to return home, they made a special request. With the help of Ranger Diaz and local wildlife officials, they established a protected corridor in that section of the forest, ensuring that Maple and her cubs would have a safe habitat for generations to come. A small plaque was placed near the spot where it happened. It read simply, "On this spot, a mother's love transcended the boundaries between species, reminding us that compassion exists in the most unexpected places." In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. Maple began appearing at the edge of the forest near Ranger Diaz's observation post. At first, Elena was concerned, thinking the bear had lost her natural fear of humans, a dangerous development for both the animal and the local residents. But the bear never approached the ranger station directly. Instead, she would appear with her 2 small cubs, watching from a distance as if making sure her family was seen and remembered. "It's almost like she wants us to know she's still here, still protecting her family just like she protected that child," Elena confided to her colleague, Ranger Tom Wilson, one evening as they watched the bear family from a safe distance. The story took another surprising turn when Benjamin Harper, still haunted by how close they had come to losing Noah, decided to channel his gratitude into action. A software engineer by profession, he took a 6-month leave of absence to develop a new car safety system specifically designed to prevent vehicular heat stroke incidents. The Car Guardian system will detect if a child is left in a vehicle and automatically adjust windows and climate control before temperatures reach dangerous levels, Benjamin explained at the product launch 6 months later. What's more, it sends immediate alerts to parents' phones and nearby emergency services. His voice broke as he added, "If it weren't for that remarkable bear, I wouldn't have my son today. I want to make sure no parent ever has to rely on a miracle like we did." The story gained national attention when documentary filmmaker Sophia Chen arrived in Pine Haven to capture the incredible tale. During filming in the forest, something extraordinary occurred that left the entire crew speechless. As they were setting up equipment near the location of the rescue, Maple appeared at the tree line, her cubs playfully tumbling behind her. "Nobody move," whispered Elena, who was serving as a guide for the documentary team. Camera operator Luis Mendez slowly raised his camera, capturing remarkable footage as the mother bear seemed to study them with intelligent eyes. What happened next defied explanation. Maple approached a fallen log about 30 yards from the crew, gently nudged her cubs to stay behind, and placed something on the log before retreating to a safe distance. When the crew cautiously approached later, they found a perfectly preserved honeycomb. It was like a gift, Luis later told reporters, his voice filled with wonder. "I've filmed wildlife for 15 years, and I've never seen anything remotely like this behavior." Dr. Amara Johnson, a wildlife biologist who reviewed the footage, cautioned against anthropomorphizing the bear's actions, but admitted the behavior was highly unusual. Bears typically guard food resources jealously, especially when feeding cubs. To apparently share food goes against everything we understand about normal bear behavior. This particular bear continues to demonstrate exceptional cognitive processes. The documentary, titled The Guardian Bear, premiered the following spring to critical acclaim. It featured interviews with the Harper family, Ranger Diaz, and various wildlife experts attempting to explain Maple's extraordinary behavior. But perhaps the most touching moment came from an unexpected source. Samuel Green, an elderly man from the nearby Oak Ridge Native American Reservation, approached Sophia after a local screening. "My grandfather would have understood," he said quietly. "In our stories, animals and humans once spoke the same language. Sometimes, in rare moments when the need is greatest, they remember." The Pine Haven Forest Preserve soon became a sanctuary not just for wildlife, but for families in need of healing. Olivia Harper, trained as a child psychologist, began volunteering at the preserve's visitor center, developing a program for children who had experienced trauma. Being in nature helps them open up in ways traditional therapy often can't achieve, she explained. And when they hear the story of the bear who saved a baby, my baby, it helps them believe that even in their darkest moments, help can come from unexpected places. As for Noah, he grew into a curious, vibrant toddler with no memory of his near tragedy, but with an unusual affinity for bears. His bedroom walls were decorated with bear pictures, and his favorite stuffed animal was, unsurprisingly, a plush brown bear he named Maple. On Noah's 3rd birthday, the Harpers brought him back to the preserve for a small celebration. As they shared cake at a picnic table near the visitor center, Elena Diaz approached with excitement in her eyes. "She's back," the ranger said quietly. "Maple and her cubs. They're at the observation point. Would you like to see them? From a safe distance, of course." The family followed Elena to a secluded viewing platform. There, in a sunlit clearing about 50 yards away, was the mother bear. Her cubs were no longer tiny, but growing into strong young bears themselves. As if sensing she was being watched, Maple raised her head and looked directly at the platform. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the bear's gaze met Olivia's. Then, remarkably, the bear's attention shifted to Noah, who stood protected in his father's arms. The child, normally talkative and bouncy, grew still. He raised his small hand in a wave. "Bear," he said simply. "Thank you." Perhaps it was just coincidence, but Maple seemed to nod her massive head once before shepherding her cubs back into the dense forest. That night, as Olivia tucked Noah into bed, He asked a question that brought tears to her eyes. "Mommy, why did the bear help me?" Olivia brushed her son's hair from his forehead, searching for the right words. "I think," she said slowly, "that sometimes love is so big it can't be contained by differences like human and animal. Sometimes love just recognizes itself across all boundaries." Benjamin, who had been listening from the doorway, added softly, "And that's why we have to protect all creatures in their homes, because we're all connected in ways we're only beginning to understand." As Noah drifted off to sleep, clutching his stuffed bear, Olivia and Benjamin stood by his window, looking out at the distant forest silhouetted against the night sky. Somewhere in those woods, Maple was likewise watching over her young ones, two mothers connected by an extraordinary moment of compassion that had changed both their lives forever. The story of Noah and Maple continued to spread, inspiring conservation efforts across the country. Schools incorporated the tale into their curriculum, teaching children about empathy that crosses species boundaries. Wildlife researchers began a long-term study of bear cognition, trying to understand the remarkable capacity for cross-species empathy that Maple had demonstrated. And in the hearts of everyone who heard the story, a small flame of hope burned brighter. Hope that in a world often divided by differences, the simplest connect. Connections, like the instinct to protect a child, could bridge even the wildest divides. Olivia often brings Noah to visit that spot as he grows older. She tells him the story of the day a mother bear heard his cries and chose kindness over fear. And though he was too young to understand then, now he knows that his life was saved by an extraordinary connection that reminds us all of the unexpected bonds that can form between all living creatures when need and compassion meet in the wild places of our world. 5 years later, the Harper family faced an unexpected challenge. Benjamin's CarGuardian system had become wildly successful, saving dozens of children across the country from vehicular heat stroke. The technology had been licensed to major car manufacturers and was becoming standard in new vehicles. But this success brought unwanted attention from Horizon Technologies, a corporate giant that claimed Benjamin had infringed on their patents. "They're trying to bury us in legal fees," Benjamin explained to Olivia one night after 8-year-old Noah had gone to bed. "If we fight this in court, we could lose everything. The house, the college fund, everything." Olivia squeezed his hand. "We'll find a way through this. We always do." What they didn't know was that Noah, now an inquisitive second grader, had overheard everything from the hallway. That night, unable to sleep with worry for his parents, he slipped out of bed and retrieved a small wooden box from his closet. Inside was a smooth Riverstone Ranger Elena had given him on his 6th birthday, a stone found near the spot where Maple had saved him. "It's a reminder," Elena had told him, "that help sometimes comes from unexpected places." Noah clutched the stone and whispered into the darkness of his room, "I wish Maple could help us again." The next morning, a Saturday, Noah convinced his parents to take him to the preserve. "I just want to visit our special spot," he insisted. Benjamin and Olivia exchanged glances. They hadn't told Noah about their financial troubles, but perhaps they all needed the peace of the forest right now. When they arrived at the visitor center, they found it bustling with unusual activity. News vans were parked outside, and a crowd had gathered around the main building. "What's happening?" Olivia asked a nearby volunteer. "You haven't heard? It's incredible. A film crew was testing new thermal imaging equipment in the forest yesterday when they captured something extraordinary. A bear led them to an undiscovered hot spring. Initial tests show the water contains rare minerals with potential medicinal properties. The pharmaceutical companies are already lining up to study it." Benjamin frowned. "What does this have to do with us?" Before the volunteer could answer, Ranger Elena spotted them and rushed over, her face alight with excitement. "I was just about to call you. You won't believe it. The bear that led them there, it was Maple." The researchers identified her from her distinctive scar pattern. Elena paused, looking directly at Noah. "And here's the incredible part. The property where the spring was discovered. It's on the edge of protected land, but it technically belongs to the Harper Wilderness Trust." Benjamin's jaw dropped. "The what?" Elena handed him a folder. "I've been researching this all night. After the incident with Noah, a wildlife conservation group quietly established a trust in your family's name, with Noah as the beneficiary. They purchased a small parcel of land adjacent to the preserve to prevent development. That's where the spring is located." Olivia opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were legal documents confirming Elena's words, along with a handwritten note from Samuel Green, the Native American elder who had spoken to them years ago after the documentary screening. "My people have known of the healing waters for generations," the note read. "We kept its location secret to protect it from exploitation. But now the time has come for it to help your family. As your family has helped protect these lands, the bear has shown the way, as bears often do in our stories." Within weeks, the Harper family had formed a partnership with a respected ethical pharmaceutical company to study the spring's properties, with a significant portion of any proceeds dedicated to wildlife conservation. The legal challenge from Horizon Technologies disappeared overnight when evidence emerged that they had been engaging in corporate espionage, attempting to steal Benjamin's improved designs for the CarGuardian system. During the official announcement of the partnership, a reporter asked Noah what he thought about all the excitement. "I think Maple knew we needed help," he said simply, "just like my parents knew she needed a safe place for her cubs." The crowd chuckled at what they assumed was a child's charming imagination. But Samuel Green, standing at the edge of the gathering, nodded solemnly. And Ranger Elena, remembering the bear's extraordinary behavior over the years, found herself wondering. That evening, after the press had gone and the preserve had grown quiet, the Harper family walked to their special spot. The plaque commemorating Noah's rescue gleamed in the setting sun. As they stood there together, a rustling in the bushes made them turn. At the edge of the clearing stood a magnificent brown bear. Larger than they remembered, with streaks of gray now visible in her fur, but unmistakably Maple. And beside her stood a fully grown young male bear, one of her cubs, now nearly her size. "It's her," Olivia whispered, reaching for Benjamin's hand. Noah stepped forward slightly, his parents too awestruck to stop him. He remained at a respectful distance, but raised his hand in the same simple wave he had offered years before. "Thank you," he said clearly, "for everything." The male bear huffed and turned back into the forest, but Maple remained for a moment longer. She gazed at Noah with those intelligent eyes that had once looked into a car window at a suffering baby, then slowly lifted her massive paw and seemed to motion toward the spring's direction before disappearing into the trees. The discovery of the spring created a ripple effect beyond anything the Harpers could have imagined. Researchers identified a unique mineral compound in the water that showed promise in treating certain autoimmune disorders. The Harper Wilderness Trust established a sustainable research facility that allowed limited collection of the spring water while preserving the surrounding ecosystem. As Noah entered his teen years, he developed a keen interest in wildlife biology, spending every free moment at the preserve. At 15, he began assisting researchers who were studying bear behavior, hoping to understand the extraordinary capacity for empathy that Maple had demonstrated. "What do you think makes Maple different from other bears?" a visiting scientist asked him one day as they reviewed footage from trail cameras. Noah considered the question carefully. "I don't think she is different," he replied finally. "I think humans and animals understand each other better than we realize. We just don't usually pay close enough attention." The scientist smiled. "That's an interesting hypothesis. How would you test it?" This conversation sparked what would become Noah's life's work. Throughout high school and into college, he developed a research protocol for studying interspecies communication and empathy. His undergraduate thesis on the subject caught the attention of major universities, earning him a full scholarship to graduate school. While Noah pursued his academic interests, his parents continued their own work. Benjamin refined the Car Guardian system, making it more affordable and accessible for all types of vehicles. Olivia expanded her trauma therapy program to multiple preserves across the country, helping children heal through connection with nature. The years passed. Maple was spotted less frequently as she aged, but trail cameras occasionally captured images of her and her growing family. The preserve established a special monitoring program for her and her descendants, creating a unique genetic record of what they now called the Guardian lineage. On Noah's 21st birthday, the family returned once more to their special spot in the preserve. The plaque had been joined by a small, tasteful monument documenting the entire extraordinary story for visitors. "I've been thinking," Noah said as they stood together in the dappled forest light. "All these years, we've been telling Maple's story, how she saved me, how she led us to the spring. But there's another story here too." "What's that?" Benjamin asked. "The story of how one act of compassion can create endless ripples," Noah replied. "The preserve expanded because of what happened. My trauma therapy program has helped hundreds of children," Olivia added. "The Car Guardian system has saved lives across the country," Benjamin continued. "And now the spring is helping develop treatments that could help thousands more," Noah finished. "All because a mother bear looked inside a car and recognized a baby in distress." As they talked, the setting sun cast long shadows through the trees. And just for a moment, though none of them would later claim absolute certainty, they glimpsed a large shape moving through the distant trees, pausing as if listening, before continuing on its way, a silent guardian still watching over the forest, and the family whose lives had become so remarkably intertwined with her own. That night, Noah shared news with his parents that brought tears to their eyes. The International Conservation Organization he'd been working with had secured funding for a vast wildlife corridor spanning 3 states, protecting migration routes for countless species. The project would be named the Maple Corridor, ensuring that the remarkable bear's legacy would protect wildlife for generations to come. "I've been keeping this quiet until it was finalized," Noah explained, his eyes bright with excitement. "But the best part is that we've developed new technologies to study bear cognition and communication. We're beginning to understand them in ways we never could before." "And?" Olivia prompted, sensing there was more. "And we've documented 7 separate cases in 3 different states of bears helping humans in distress," Noah replied. "It's not just Maple. It's not just one extraordinary bear. Once we knew what to look for, once we started really paying attention, we found that these connections between species happen more often than anyone realized." Benjamin shook his head in wonder. "All those years ago when we thought we'd lost you in that car, I never could have imagined where it would lead." "Life's funny that way," Olivia said softly. "Our greatest challenges often become our greatest gifts." Outside their window, the stars shone down on the forest preserve, now 5 times its original size. Somewhere in those protected woods, Maple's descendants roamed free, carrying forward the legacy of a bear who once looked through a car window and made a choice that would change countless lives. proving that sometimes the most powerful connections cross boundaries we once thought uncrossable, and that compassion might be the most universal language of all. 10 years later, Dr. Noah Harper stood at the edge of a research blind deep in the Maple Corridor Wildlife Preserve, now spanning over 3 million acres across Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. At 31, he had become one of the world's leading experts on ursine cognition and interspecies empathy. His pioneering research methods had revolutionized how scientists understood animal consciousness, earning him both acclaim and controversy in academic circles. "Are you getting this?" he whispered to his research partner, Dr. Leila Patel, who monitored a sophisticated array of sensory equipment. "Every second," she confirmed, adjusting the thermal imaging cameras. "Subject Beta 17 is exhibiting the same pattern we observed last week. She's deliberately leaving food at the edge of the McAllister family's campsite." Beta 17 was the great-granddaughter of Maple, now a legend among both scientists and the public. The massive female bear had been carefully placing berries at the periphery of a campsite where a family with a child on the autism spectrum was staying. The child, 7-year-old Mia McAllister, had been nonverbal since birth, but had shown remarkable responses to animals, particularly bears, which had prompted her parents to bring her to the preserve as part of Noah's experimental therapy program. "This is the 4th consecutive night," Noah noted, recording observations in his tablet. "And the placement is deliberate, always at the exact spot where Mia sits during the day." The bear's behavior defied conventional understanding. She wasn't seeking food or exhibiting any signs of habituation to humans. Instead, she appeared to be deliberately engaging in what Noah's research team had termed prosocial offering behavior, a phenomenon previously undocumented in wild bears. Back at the research center, Noah's parents waited anxiously for his return. Though now in their 60s, Olivia and Benjamin Harper remained actively involved in the preserve's operations. Benjamin had retired from active development of safety technologies, but served as the chairperson of the Harper Foundation, which funded research and conservation efforts worldwide. Olivia still supervised the trauma therapy program she had founded, though she had handed day-to-day operations to younger psychologists. "Do you think he's found more evidence?" Benjamin asked, pacing the polished wood floors of the visitor center. "If anyone can document what's happening with these bears, it's Noah," Olivia replied, gazing out at the forest that had become their life's work. "After all, he has a special connection to them that no one else could have." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Dr. Marcus Chen, Noah's former academic advisor and now the head of the International Wildlife Conservation Committee, entered the center looking troubled. "Marcus," Benjamin greeted him with surprise, "we weren't expecting you until next week's conference." "I came as soon as I could," Marcus replied gravely. "There's a situation developing that concerns all of you." He placed a tablet on the table, displaying satellite imagery of a vast section of forest adjacent to the northern boundary of the Maple Corridor. "Titanium deposits have been discovered here. Significant ones." Olivia's hand went to her throat. "That's prime habitat for the guardian lineage bears." Marcus nodded. "Global Resource Extraction has already secured preliminary mining rights. They're promising environmentally responsible extraction, but we all know what that means." "How could this happen?" Benjamin demanded. "That area was supposed to be under protection negotiations." "Politics," Marcus said simply. "The new administration has been quietly rolling back environmental protections. GRE made substantial campaign contributions." He hesitated. "There's more. Their CEO is Harlan Davidson." The name landed like a stone. Harlan Davidson had been the founder of Horizon Technologies, the company that had tried to destroy Benjamin's CarGuardian system decades earlier. After his company's disgrace, he had disappeared from public life, apparently rebuilding his fortune in the mining sector. This is personal for him, Benjamin realized. He's never forgiven us for what happened. We need to tell Noah, Olivia said firmly. As if on cue, the door opened and Noah entered with Layla, their faces flushed with excitement that quickly faded as they registered the tension in the room. "What's happened?" Noah asked. After Marcus explained the situation, a heavy silence fell over the group. The mining operation wouldn't just destroy crucial habitat. It would sever the wildlife corridor that allowed for genetic diversity among the bear populations. More specifically, it targeted the precise region where most of Maple's descendants, including Beta 17, made their dens. "There's something else you should know," Layla said quietly. "Tonight we observed Beta 17 leading Mia McAllister's family to something." She pulled up video footage on her tablet. The bear deliberately circled them, then led them to this location. The footage showed the McAllister family, with little Mia walking confidently in front, following at a safe distance behind the enormous bear. Beta 17 led them to a small clearing where exposed rock gleamed in the moonlight. "That's part of the same mineral vein that GRE wants to mine," Marcus said, peering at the footage. "But why would the bear lead them there?" The answer came 3 days later, when laboratory analysis of rock samples from the site revealed something extraordinary. The rocks contained not just titanium, but a previously undiscovered mineral compound with remarkable properties. Initial tests suggested it might be effective in treating neurodevelopmental disorders. More remarkable still was what happened with young Mia. After handling stones from the site for several days, she spoke her first word: bear. The discovery created an immediate scientific and media sensation. The maple mineral, as it was quickly dubbed, became the subject of intense research interest. Preliminary studies showed promising results for treating certain forms of autism, ADHD, and other neurodevelopmental conditions. The revelation put global resource extraction in a difficult position. Mining the area for titanium would destroy the only known source of a potentially revolutionary medical compound. Public opinion rapidly turned against the company, with protesters gathering outside their headquarters holding signs reading, "Choose healing over profit," and "Bears know best." Harlan Davidson, however, was not easily deterred. In a surprising move, he requested a private meeting with the Harper family at the preserve. Security was tight as his helicopter landed on the visitor center's pad one crisp autumn morning. Davidson had aged since Benjamin had last seen him, now in his 70s with silver hair and deep lines etched into his face. But his eyes still held the same cold determination. "I'll be direct," he said after cursory greetings. "I'm offering to withdraw GRE's mining application on one condition." He slid a document across the table. Full ownership of the maple mineral patent and all research related to it. Noah shook his head. "The mineral belongs to the preserve. We've already established that it will be developed as a public resource, with profits funding conservation and making treatments accessible to everyone who needs them." Davidson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Noble, but naive. Do you have any idea what this compound is worth? Billions, potentially. Under my company's development, we could expedite FDA approval, scale production, and price it beyond reach of most families who need it," Olivia interrupted. "No, Mr. Davidson, we've seen how you operate." The older man's facade of civility cracked. "Then I'll take it anyway. That land will be mine, one way or another." "I think there's something you should see before you make threats," Benjamin said quietly. He nodded to Noah, who switched on a large screen at the end of the conference room. The footage showed Beta 17 and 5 other bears from the Guardian lineage, each methodically gathering stones from all across the mineral vein area and redistributing them throughout the preserve. "What am I looking at?" Davidson demanded. "They're hiding the mineral," Noah explained, wonder still evident in his voice. "After we took samples, they began systematically relocating pieces of the deposit throughout thousands of acres of protected land. We've documented them carrying fragments up to 20 miles from the original site." Layla added, "They're working in coordinated shifts. Different bears, different times of day, different destinations. The pattern is unmistakable." Davidson stared at the footage, his expression unreadable. "You expect me to believe that bears are, what? Deliberately hiding a valuable resource from humans." "Not from humans," Noah corrected. "From exploitation. They're ensuring it remains available but protected. We found small caches near camping areas used by families with children who have developmental challenges, like they're offering it to those who need it." The silence that followed was broken by a soft knock at the door. Elena Diaz, now the head ranger of the preserve, entered with Samuel Green. Though now in his 90s, the Native American elder still carried himself with quiet dignity, assisted by a carved wooden cane. "I apologize for interrupting," Elena said, "but Mr. Green insisted on speaking with everyone." Samuel looked directly at Davidson. "I have lived long enough to see many impossible things become possible," he said, his voice soft but clear. "My grandfather spoke of guardian spirits in the form of bears who protected the sacred places and guided those who approached with good hearts. I have watched this story unfold across decades." He placed a small stone on the table, one with the distinctive blue-green veining of the maple mineral. "This came from my grandfather's medicine pouch. Our people have known of these stones for generations. We did not mine them. We gathered only what the bears left for us." Davidson's face had lost some of its hardness as he stared at the ancient stone. "What are you suggesting?" "That some relationships are older and wiser than our modern understanding," Samuel replied. "The bears have been guardians of this medicine since before any of us walked these forests. They are not just animals acting on instinct, they are choosing, as Maple chose when she saved a child many years ago, as her descendants choose now to share this gift with those who need healing." The room fell silent as Davidson stared at the small stone. Finally, he looked up, his eyes moving from Samuel to the Harper family, then back to the screen showing the bears methodically distributing the precious mineral throughout protected land. "I came here thinking this was about business," he said slowly, "about settling an old score. But this," he gestured toward the footage, "this is something else entirely. What happened next would be debated in corporate boardrooms and conservation circles for years to come." Harlan Davidson withdrew not only GRE's mining application, but announced his retirement from the company. In a stunning reversal, he established the Davidson Redemption Fund, endowing it with $50 million to support the preservation of the Maple Corridor and ethical research into the mineral's properties. When asked by stunned reporters why he had changed his position so dramatically, Davidson offered only a cryptic response. "Some treasures aren't meant to be owned, only shared. It took me 70 years and a family of bears to learn that." The following spring brought yet another extraordinary development. Mia McAllister, the young girl who had spoken her first word after exposure to the maple mineral, began drawing intricate patterns that researchers eventually recognized as maps of the preserve, with X marks indicating where bears had cached the healing stones. More remarkably still, she began to exhibit what appeared to be an ability to communicate with the bears themselves. While scientists remained skeptical, the evidence was difficult to dismiss. When Mia sat at the edge of the forest, Beta 17 and other guardian lineage bears would appear, maintaining a respectful distance but clearly aware of her presence. "It's like they recognize something in her," Noah explained to his parents as they watched from the observation blind. "And she and them." "A shared language," Olivia suggested. "Or a shared understanding that goes beyond language," Benjamin added. Research into the maple mineral revealed that it emitted a low-frequency electromagnetic pulse when in proximity to certain brainwave patterns, particularly those common in neurodivergent individuals. This pulse appeared to facilitate neural pathways typically underutilized in conditions like autism. More intriguingly, brain imaging revealed that bears of the guardian lineage showed similar neural activity to humans with heightened empathic abilities. "It's as though the mineral serves as a bridge between different types of minds," Layla explained at a conference presenting their findings. "Between species, between neurotypes, opening channels of understanding we never knew existed." The revelations prompted a fundamental rethinking of conservation philosophy worldwide. The Maple Corridor model, preserving not just animals but the complex web of relationships between species and landscapes, became the new standard for environmental protection. International treaties were established recognizing certain animal populations, including the guardian lineage bears, as possessing advanced cognitive rights that entitled them to legal protections previously reserved for endangered species. On the 20th anniversary of Noah's rescue, the Harper family gathered once more at the original plaque in the forest. Now, joined by Noah's wife, Layla, and their 5-year-old daughter, Maya, named after the remarkable bear who had started it all, they reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with one bear's compassionate choice. "I've been thinking about something Samuel said years ago," Noah mused as Maya played nearby, carefully arranging small stones in patterns only she understood. "About how animals and humans once spoke the same language, and sometimes in moments of greatest need they remember." Olivia smiled. "I think we're learning to listen again." Benjamin nodded toward Maya, who had wandered slightly away from the group. A large shadow emerged from the trees. Beta 17. Now in her elder years but still magnificent. The bear stopped several yards from the child, lowered her massive head, and gently pushed a small blue-green stone forward with her nose. Maya picked up the stone, held it to her ear as if listening, then giggled and whispered something that none of the adults could hear. The bear made a soft huffing sound that almost resembled laughter before retreating into the dappled shadows of the forest. "What did you say to her, sweetie?" Layla asked as Maya returned to the group. The child smiled, clutching the stone to her chest. "I told her thank you for saving Daddy when he was little," she said simply. "And she said you're welcome. She says we're family now." As scientists and researchers, Noah and Layla might have dismissed such a claim as childish imagination. But after decades of witnessing the extraordinary capacity for understanding between species, they exchanged a look of wonder rather than doubt. The story of Maple and the Harpers had come full circle, spanning generations of both bears and humans. What had begun as a singular act of cross-species compassion had evolved into a profound reshaping of how humans understood their relationship with the natural world and with each other. And somewhere in the vast protected wilderness of the Maple Corridor, a mother bear led her cubs to a sun-dappled clearing, where she would teach them the ancient wisdom now scientifically verified, that compassion knows no boundaries of species, that helping others creates ripples that can change the world, and that sometimes the most important connections are formed in moments when we recognize ourselves in the most unexpected places, like in the eyes of a different species, looking back at us with understanding that transcends all differences. 15 years passed. Maya Harper, now 20, had grown into a remarkable young woman who embodied the unique legacy of her family. Unlike her father Noah, who had approached the bear-human connection through rigorous scientific inquiry, Maya possessed what many called an intuitive understanding. Since childhood, she had demonstrated an uncanny ability to predict where guardian lineage bears would appear, often sitting quietly in the forest for hours before a bear would emerge exactly where she waited. The Maple Corridor now spanned 5 states and was recognized by the United Nations as a global heritage site for interspecies cooperation. The research center had expanded into the International Institute for Cognitive Biodiversity, drawing scientists, psychologists, and philosophers from around the world to study the extraordinary relationships that had developed between humans and the guardian bears. But this remarkable era of discovery and cooperation now faced its greatest threat. "The test results are conclusive, Doctor." Eliza Nakamura, the Institute's chief veterinary scientist, reported grimly as she displayed brain scans on the conference room's wall screens. "It's a prion disease, similar to chronic wasting disease in deer, but specifically targeting ursine neural pathways. It attacks precisely the areas of the brain associated with the advanced cognition we've documented in the guardian lineage." Noah, now in his mid-40s with streaks of silver threading through his dark hair, studied the image with growing alarm. "How far has it spread?" "We've confirmed cases in 3 distinct bear families within the northern sector," Eliza replied, "including Beta 17's youngest granddaughter. Early symptoms include disorientation and loss of the complex problem-solving behaviors we've documented. Late-stage effects appear to include complete cognitive regression and eventually death." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The disease threatened not just individual bears, but the extraordinary cognitive abilities that had made the guardian lineage unique, abilities that had reshaped humanity's understanding of animal intelligence and led to countless medical and scientific breakthroughs. "What about transmission vectors?" Layla asked, her voice tight with concern. "Is there any evidence this could spread to humans?" "None so far," Eliza assured her. "All tests indicate it's species-specific to bears, but there's something troubling about its emergence." She hesitated. "The genetic structure suggests it's not a natural mutation. The prion protein appears to have been engineered." Benjamin, now in his late 70s but still sharp-minded, leaned forward. "You're saying someone created this disease deliberately?" "It's the most plausible explanation," Eliza confirmed. "A natural prion disease would affect wider bear populations. This one specifically targets the neural pathways unique to the guardian lineage." "Who would do such a thing?" Olivia asked, her once auburn hair now white, her face lined with concern. "And why?" Before anyone could respond, the conference room door burst open. Maya rushed in, her face flushed and eyes wild. "They're trying to communicate something," she gasped. "All of them, all across the preserve. They're gathering at the original site." The original site, where Noah had been rescued as a baby, had become a place of extraordinary significance over the decades. On rare occasions, guardian bears would congregate there in what researchers had come to recognize as moments of crisis or importance. Within the hour, a small group had assembled at the observation blind near the original site. What they witnessed defied explanation. 37 bears, nearly every adult member of the guardian lineage, had gathered in the clearing. At the center stood an elderly Beta 17, now one of the oldest known wild bears in North America. Despite showing symptoms of the prion disease, she moved with purpose, arranging stones in a distinctive pattern on the forest floor. "It's a map," Maya whispered, sketching rapidly in her notebook. "They're showing us something." Noah studied his daughter's drawing with growing astonishment. The pattern matched a remote section of the corridor near the Canadian border, a region rarely visited even by researchers due to its rugged terrain. "What's there?" Layla wondered. "Nothing in our records," Noah replied. "It's outside the original habitat range for the Guardian lineage." Maya continued drawing as the bears adjusted their stone map. "They're adding something." Her pencil traced a series of circles around a central point. "It looks like concentric rings, like ripples in water." Samuel Green's great-granddaughter, Dr. Ava Green, who had followed in her ancestors' footsteps as both a tribal elder and a biologist, studied the pattern intently. "In our stories, that symbol represents a source, a beginning point." The expedition set out the following dawn. Noah, Layla, Maya, Ava, and a small team of researchers and guides. The journey to the remote location took 3 grueling days, made more challenging by unusually severe weather and equipment failures that seemed almost deliberate, as if something was working against their progress. On the morning of the 4th day, as they crested a ridge overlooking a hidden valley, they discovered something that stopped them in their tracks. Nestled between steep mountain walls was a facility, modern, camouflaged, but unmistakably man-made. "That's not on any map," Noah murmured, examining the compound through high-powered binoculars. "No markings, no insignia." "Looks military," observed Chan Wei, their security specialist and a former wilderness ranger. "Or private research, serious security measures." As they observed from their hidden vantage point, a convoy of vehicles emerged from the facility's underground garage. Through his binoculars, Noah caught a glimpse of a familiar face in one of the departing SUVs. "That's impossible," he breathed. "That's Harlan Davidson." "Davidson," Layla repeated in disbelief. "But he died 5 years ago. There was a funeral, obituaries." "Apparently greatly exaggerated," Noah replied grimly. "And look at this." He passed the binoculars to his wife, pointing to a symbol barely visible on one of the facility's outer doors, a stylized bear paw with a DNA helix superimposed over it. "Project Guardian," Layla read the text beneath the logo. "What is this place?" The truth, when they finally uncovered it, was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Through careful surveillance and hacking into the facility's poorly secured wireless signals, the team discovered fragments of the facility's true purpose. Project Guardian had begun decades earlier, a classified government program investigating Ursine cognition after reports of unusual bear behavior in the region. What had started as scientific curiosity had evolved into something darker. When Harlan Davidson had supposedly died, he had actually been recruited to privatize the program, using his considerable fortune and resources to develop what internal documents chillingly called cognitive control vectors, essentially targeted biological agents designed to enhance or suppress specific neural pathways in bears. "They created the Guardian lineage," Maya whispered as the team reviewed the evidence in their hidden camp. "They've been experimenting on these bears for generations." "Not exactly," Noah corrected, studying the fragmented documents. "They observed the natural cognitive abilities in certain bears and attempted to enhance them through selective breeding and experimental treatments. But something happened they didn't expect." Layla continued reading, her voice growing more disturbed. "The bears began developing cognitive abilities beyond the parameters of the experiments. Empathy, problem-solving, even rudimentary symbolic communication, far beyond what the researchers anticipated. Maple wasn't just a random bear who saved a baby, Ava realized. She was one of their test subjects who escaped or was released. But why create the prion disease now? Maya demanded. Why try to destroy what they created? The answer came from further decryption of the facility's files. Project Guardian had been intended to develop bears with enhanced cognition for military applications, animals that could be trained for reconnaissance and potentially even combat roles, yet would appear to be natural wildlife. But the enhanced bears had proven impossible to control. They demonstrated not just intelligence but moral agency, refusing commands that would harm others, forming social bonds the researchers couldn't break, and eventually escaping the facility's control entirely. They've been trying to recapture control of the experiment for decades, Noah realized. The prion disease isn't meant to kill the bears. It's designed to suppress only the independent cognitive functions while preserving the enhanced capabilities they want to exploit. So, Maple saving me, my whole life's work, the preserve, it was all connected to this experiment? The implications staggered him. Not the way they intended, Maya said fiercely. What they created broke free of their control and became something beautiful instead, proof that consciousness and compassion transcend human boundaries. They wanted weapons. They got beings capable of moral choices instead. The team was debating their next move when Maya suddenly stiffened. Someone's coming. They doused their lights and prepared to defend themselves, but the approaching figure wasn't a facility guard. It was a young woman, perhaps 18, moving with the confident stride of someone who knew exactly where she was going. "Don't be afraid," she called softly before they could retreat. "I've been waiting for you to find this place. My name is Sophia Davidson." "Davidson?" Noah echoed in disbelief. "Harlan Davidson is my grandfather," she confirmed, "and I've been working to expose his operation from the inside for the past year." Sophia's story unfolded over the next hours. Harlan Davidson had never truly changed. His apparent redemption and conservation efforts had been a calculated cover to gain access to the bears he had become obsessed with controlling. While publicly supporting the Maple Corridor, he had secretly built this facility and assembled a team of ethically flexible scientists to continue the work Project Guardian had begun. But he didn't count on genetics, Sophia explained. "My mother worked here as a researcher when she was pregnant with me. She was exposed to the same compounds they used on the bears, compounds derived from the maple mineral itself." Sophia extended her hand, palm up, revealing a small stone with the distinctive blue-green veining they all recognized. "I've been able to sense the bears my whole life. Understand them sometimes. When I discovered what my grandfather was doing, what he was planning to do with the prion disease, I knew I had to stop him." "How did you know we'd come here?" Layla asked. "Because the bears told me," Sophia replied simply. "The same way they've been guiding all of us for generations, countless species. The project would be named the Maple Corridor, ensuring that the remarkable bear's legacy would protect wildlife for generations to come. I've been keeping this quiet until it was finalized," Noah explained, his eyes bright with excitement. "But the best part is that we've developed new technologies to study bear cognition and communication. We're beginning to understand them in ways we never could before." "And?" Olivia prompted, sensing there was more. "And we've documented 7 separate cases in 3 different states of bears helping humans in distress," Noah replied. "It's not just Maple. It's not just one extraordinary bear. Once we knew what to look for, once we started really paying attention, we found that these connections between species happen more often than anyone realized." Benjamin shook his head in wonder. "All those years ago, when we thought we'd lost you in that car, I never could have imagined where it would lead." "Life's funny that way," Olivia said softly. Our greatest challenges often become our greatest gifts. Outside their window, the stars shone down on the forest preserve, now 5 times its original size. Somewhere in those protected woods, Maple's descendants roamed free, carrying forward the legacy of a bear who once looked through a car window and made a choice that would change countless lives, proving that sometimes the most powerful connections cross boundaries we once thought uncrossable, and that compassion might be the most universal language of all. 10 years later, Dr. Noah Harper stood at the edge of a research blind deep in the Maple Corridor Wildlife Preserve, now spanning over 3 million acres across Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. At 31, he had become one of the world's leading experts on ursine cognition and interspecies empathy. His pioneering research methods had revolutionized how scientists understood animal consciousness, earning him both acclaim and controversy in academic circles. "Are you getting this?" he whispered to his research partner, Dr. Leila Patel, who monitored a sophisticated array of sensory equipment. "Every second," she confirmed, adjusting the thermal imaging cameras. Subject Beta 17 is exhibiting the same pattern we observed last week. She's deliberately leaving food at the edge of the McAllister family's campsite. Beta 17 was the great-granddaughter of Maple, now a legend among both scientists and the public. The massive female bear had been carefully placing berries at the periphery of a campsite where a family with a child on the autism spectrum was staying. The child, 7-year-old Mia McAllister, had been nonverbal since birth, but had shown remarkable responses to animals, particularly bears, which had prompted her parents to bring her to the preserve as part of Noah's experimental therapy program. "This is the 4th consecutive night," Noah noted, recording observations in his tablet. "And the placement is deliberate, always at the exact spot where Mia sits during the day." The bear's behavior defied conventional understanding. She wasn't seeking food or exhibiting any signs of habituation to humans. Instead, she appeared to be deliberately engaging in what Noah's research team had termed prosocial offering behavior, a phenomenon previously undocumented in wild bears. Back at the research center, Noah's parents waited anxiously for his return. Though now in their 60s, Olivia and Benjamin Harper remained actively involved in the preserve's operations. Benjamin had retired from active development of safety technologies, but served as the chairperson of the Harper Foundation, which funded research and conservation efforts worldwide. Olivia still supervised the trauma therapy program she had founded, though she had handed day-to-day operations to younger psychologists. "Do you think he's found more evidence?" Benjamin asked, pacing the polished wood floors of the visitor center. "If anyone can document what's happening with these bears, it's Noah," Olivia replied, gazing out at the forest that had become their life's work. "After all, he has a special connection to them that no one else could have." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Dr. Marcus Chen, Noah's former academic advisor and now the head of the International Wildlife Conservation Committee, entered the center looking troubled. "Marcus," Benjamin greeted him with surprise, "we weren't expecting you until next week's conference." "I came as soon as I could," Marcus replied gravely. "There's a situation developing that concerns all of you." He placed a tablet on the table, displaying satellite imagery of a vast section of forest adjacent to the northern boundary of the Maple Corridor. Titanium deposits have been discovered here, significant ones. With Sophia's help, the team formulated a plan. The facility's security had a critical weakness. Its advanced systems were designed to detect humans, but completely ignored the wildlife that frequently wandered near the perimeter. And the bears, it seemed, were already gathering. What followed would later be called the Awakening in scientific journals and the Great Communion in more spiritual circles. As dawn broke over the hidden valley, nearly 50 guardian bears emerged from the surrounding forest, led by the eldest matriarchs, including a frail but determined Beta-17. They moved with uncanny coordination, positioning themselves around the facility's perimeter. Inside, alarms blared as security systems registered the unprecedented bear activity. Facility personnel scrambled to respond, but appeared confused by the bears' behavior. They neither attacked nor fled, simply maintained their positions, watching the humans with intelligent eyes. They're surrounding the place, but what exactly is the plan? Chan asked nervously. A distraction, Maya replied, her eyes fixed on the bears. They're giving us time. With security focused on the perimeter, Sophia led a small team, Noah, Maya, and Ava, through a service tunnel into the facility's main laboratory. There, they found what they were seeking: the prion disease research and, more importantly, its antidote. They always develop a failsafe, Sophia explained as she accessed the secure storage unit, in case their own researchers are exposed. But as they were downloading the research and collecting samples of the antidote, the laboratory door slid open. Harlan Davidson stood in the doorway, flanked by armed security personnel. "I wondered when the Harpers would find their way here," he said, his voice thin, but still carrying the same cold determination Noah remembered from decades ago. 3 generations of bleeding hearts, all in one convenient location. "Why, Harlan?" Noah demanded. "You had a chance to do the right thing years ago. You seemed to understand then." "What I understood," Davidson replied, "was the untapped potential being squandered on feel-good conservation and sentimental research. Do you have any idea what you've been sitting on? Animals with near-human cognitive abilities, capable of being trained for any purpose, military, industrial, medical, the applications are endless." "They're not tools," Maya said fiercely. "They're conscious beings making their own choices." Davidson laughed. "Choice is an illusion we can program and unprogram. Your precious guardian bears are simply the result of specific neural pathways we enhanced. And now we'll bring those pathways back under proper control." He gestured to his security team. "Take them to holding. Once we've administered the prion agent throughout the preserve, the bears will lose these inconvenient independent tendencies while retaining their enhanced capabilities. Then we can finally complete what Project Guardian started." But as the guards moved to apprehend them, a deep rumbling shook the facility. The lights flickered, and emergency systems activated. "Sir," one of the guards said urgently into his radio, "the bears. They're attacking the power substation and water treatment facility simultaneously." "Impossible," Davidson snapped. "They can't coordinate at that level." A security monitor on the wall showed the incredible scene unfolding outside. The bears had indeed split into coordinated groups, targeting critical infrastructure with uncanny precision. Some were dismantling power lines, others damaging water pipes, while a third group had somehow breached the facility's fuel depot. In the chaos that followed, Maya locked eyes with her father. "Now," she whispered. Noah reached into his pocket and pressed a small device Sophia had given them, a signal jammer that disabled the laboratory's electronic door locks. As security personnel rushed to respond to the facility-wide crisis, the small team sealed themselves in the laboratory. "This won't hold them for long," Sophia warned, rapidly gathering research materials and samples of the antidote. "We need to destroy everything else." "Wait," Ava said suddenly, examining one of the laboratory screens. "Look at this." The screen displayed genetic sequencing data, comparing the DNA of guardian bears to standard wild bears. But there was a third comparison that made their hearts race. Human DNA, specifically from the Harper and Davidson bloodlines. They've been studying your families for generations, Sophia realized. The same genetic markers that make the guardian bears unique. They appear in human form in your family, Maya, and in mine. That's why you can communicate with them, Noah breathed. Why Maya has always had a special connection. And why my grandfather is so obsessed, Sophia added grimly. He doesn't just want to control the bears. He wants to understand and harness whatever makes this connection possible. A thunderous pounding at the laboratory door cut their discovery short. The security team was attempting to break through. "We need to get this information out," Layla said over their radio link from her position outside. "Even if we don't make it out ourselves." "We will," Maya said with sudden determination. She closed her eyes, her face taking on an expression of intense concentration. Outside, through the laboratory's reinforced windows, they could see the bears suddenly change their behavior, gathering in a tight formation directly below. "What are you doing?" Noah asked his daughter in wonder. "Asking for help," Maya replied, her voice strained. "The same way they've been helping us all along." The bears below began a coordinated assault on the building's foundation, causing the entire structure to shudder. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Automated systems announced structural integrity failures and ordered immediate evacuation. "They're creating a diversion," Sophia realized, "forcing an evacuation so we can escape in the chaos." As the facility's personnel abandoned their posts, the small team made their way through emergency exits, carrying the precious research data and antidote samples. Outside, in the confusion of alarms and evacuating staff, they reunited with the rest of their expedition. But Harlan Davidson was not among those fleeing. As they made their final push toward the forest perimeter, they spotted him standing alone by the facility's main entrance, watching the bears with an expression of mingled fear and fascination. "Grandfather," Sophia called. "Come with us. The building is collapsing." Davidson turned toward them, his aged face illuminated by the emergency lights. For a moment, something like regret flickered across his features. Then his expression hardened. "You'll see," he called back. "One day you'll understand what I was trying to achieve." Before anyone could respond, a massive section of the facility's wall gave way. Davidson disappeared beneath the rubble as the building began to collapse in earnest. Sophia cried out, but Maya pulled her back, guiding the group to safety as the secret installation crumbled behind them. The journey back to the Institute was somber but purposeful. With the antidote samples and research data, they could develop a treatment for the affected bears. More importantly, they now understood the true origins of the Guardian lineage and the remarkable connection that had shaped 3 generations of 2 families. 6 months later, Noah stood at the original site, watching as a recovering Beta-17 led her youngest cubs through the dappled forest light. The prion disease had been halted, though some of the affected bears would never fully regain their enhanced cognitive abilities. But the lineage would continue, now protected by international treaties and conservation laws that recognized their unique status. Beside him stood Maya and Sophia, who had become inseparable since the events at the facility. Together, they had established the Interspecies Communication Initiative, a new research program that built on Noah's work while incorporating Sophia's insights into the genetic basis for the bear-human connection. "What still amazes me," Noah said, watching the bears forage peacefully, "is how much they understood before we did. They knew about the facility, about the disease, about the connection between our families. They've been trying to communicate with us for generations." "We just weren't listening properly," Maya replied, "or maybe we weren't ready to hear." Sophia nodded. "My grandfather saw them as experiments that escaped his control." He never understood that what made them special wasn't something humans created. It was something that was always there, just waiting to be recognized. As they spoke, Beta 17 paused in her foraging and turned toward them. Despite her age and the lingering effects of the disease, her eyes held the same intelligence and awareness that had characterized her great-grandmother Maple when she had peered through a car window at a suffering baby so many years before. The elderly bear huffed softly, then deliberately arranged 3 stones in a triangular pattern before continuing on her way. "What did she say?" Noah asked, looking between his daughter and Sophia. The 2 young women exchanged a glance, then smiled. "She said the circle is complete," Maya translated. 3 generations of bears, 3 generations of humans, learning to speak each other's language. And what happens now? Noah wondered. Sophia picked up one of the stones Beta 17 had arranged, turning it over in her hand. It bore the distinctive blue-green veining of the maple mineral. "Now we begin a new circle," she said simply. "Together." As if in confirmation, a new sound echoed through the forest. The excited calls of children from the Institute's outreach program, arriving for their weekly communion with the bears. Among them were children with autism, ADHD, and other neurodevelopmental conditions who had shown remarkable responses to both the maple mineral and interaction with the guardian bears. Olivia, now in her 80s but still active in the therapy program she had founded, led the group. Benjamin walked beside her, leaning on a cane but still straight-backed and alert. Layla followed with research equipment, ever the scientist even after decades of extraordinary discoveries. 3 generations of humans meeting 3 generations of bears in a forest that had witnessed an unfolding story of connection that had changed the world's understanding of consciousness, compassion, and communication across the boundaries that once seemed impenetrable. And somewhere, perhaps, the spirit of Maple, the bear who had looked through a car window and made a choice that rippled across decades, watched over them all, her legacy living on in every act of cross-species compassion and understanding throughout the corridor that bore her name. The scientists would continue their research, publishing papers and developing new technologies based on what they learned. The conservationists would protect the habitat and the remarkable beings who called it home. The therapists would help children find healing through connection with the natural world. But beneath all these worthy endeavors lay a simpler truth, one that had begun with a baby's cry and a bear's choice, that compassion is a language understood by all conscious beings, that helping others creates ripples that can transform the world, and that sometimes the most profound connections are formed when we recognize ourselves in the most unexpected places, like in the eyes of a different species, looking back at us with understanding that transcends all differences. In the years that followed, as the maple mineral's healing properties became better understood and more widely available, as the guardian bears continued to demonstrate extraordinary cognitive abilities and emotional intelligence, as the boundaries between human and animal consciousness grew increasingly blurred, one question remained at the heart of scientific and philosophical inquiry. Had humans created something new in the guardian bears through their experiments? Or had they simply recognized and enhanced what was already there? A capacity for compassion, creativity, and connection that had always existed in the natural world, waiting for humans to evolve enough to perceive it. The answer, perhaps, was both and neither. For in the end, what the story of Maple and the Harpers revealed was not just the extraordinary potential of bears, but the extraordinary potential of humans to move beyond dominion and control, toward partnership and mutual understanding with the countless other conscious beings with whom we share our remarkable planet. And it had all begun with one mother bear, one human baby, and a moment of compassion that transcended every boundary we thought we knew. On the 50th anniversary of Noah's rescue, a remarkable ceremony took place at the original site. 4 generations of the Harper family gathered, Benjamin and Olivia, now in their 90s, arriving in specialized mobility chairs. Noah and Layla in their 60s, their scientific accomplishments now legendary in conservation circles. Maya and her partner Sophia, both renowned leaders in interspecies communication, and 12-year-old Maple Harper Davidson, named after the bear who had changed all their lives. They were not alone. Hundreds of people had journeyed to witness this historic moment. Scientists, conservationists, government officials, and ordinary families whose lives had been touched by the guardian bears and the maple mineral. The international treaty recognizing advanced cognitive species was being signed today, with the Maple Corridor as its first designated conscious cohabitation zone, a place where humans and non-human intelligent species would be recognized as equal stakeholders in governance and stewardship. As the official proceedings began, young Maple slipped away from the ceremony. Something was calling her into the forest, a feeling she had known all her life but had grown stronger in recent months. With the intuitive confidence that had characterized both her mother's relationships with the bears, she followed the sensation to a small clearing just beyond view of the gathering. There, waiting in dappled sunlight, stood an ancient bear, the last direct descendant of the original Maple, her coat now silver with age, her eyes clouded but still radiating intelligence and awareness. Beside her stood 2 younger bears, strong and alert, watching over their elderly matriarch. "Hello," Maple said softly, maintaining a respectful distance. "I've been hoping to meet you." The elderly bear studied her with those knowing eyes, then deliberately lowered herself to the forest floor with the careful movements of great age. She extended one massive paw, and with precision that defied her years, drew a simple pattern in the dirt, a circle with smaller circles inside it. Maple's breath caught. She had seen this symbol in the family archives, the same pattern Beta 17 had drawn decades ago. "Family," she whispered, recognizing its meaning from her mother's research. The bear huffed softly in what might have been approval, then added another mark, a line connecting all the circles. "Connected, family connected," Maple translated, her voice trembling with emotion. From behind her came soft footsteps. Her mothers, Maya and Sophia, had followed, standing quietly at the edge of the clearing. "She's the last of the original lineage," Maya said quietly. "We thought she had passed last winter." "She waited," Sophia added, her voice filled with wonder. "She waited for this day." The elderly bear turned her gaze toward the 2 women, then back to young Maple. With deliberate movements, she pushed herself up from the ground, approached the child with gentle steps, and did something no bear had done in all the decades of interaction. She gently pressed her forehead against the child's, a moment of physical contact that sent shivers of emotion through everyone present. Then she stepped back, looked once more at each of them, and with surprising grace for her advanced age, turned and walked deeper into the forest, her guardians following close behind. Back at the ceremony, as Benjamin and Olivia prepared to place their shaking hands on the historic treaty document, young Maple returned to their side, her eyes shining with tears and wonder. "What is it, sweetheart?" Benjamin asked, noting his great-granddaughter's expression. "She said goodbye," Maple whispered. "The last of Maple's direct line. She said her work is done now." Olivia reached out a weathered hand to touch the child's cheek. And what work was that? The girl looked up at her great-grandmother, then at the gathering of humans, and the forest beyond where bears watched from a respectful distance. "Teaching us to see," she said simply. "Teaching us to really see each other." As if on cue, a soft murmuring spread through the crowd. From every direction of the forest, bears had emerged, dozens of them, standing at the periphery of the gathering. Not just guardian lineage bears, but bears of all types that called the corridor home. They made no sound, no movement toward the humans, simply stood witness to this moment when two species acknowledged their shared future. Benjamin Harper, who had once been a desperate father searching frantically for his infant son in a forest he believed hostile and dangerous, now looked out at these powerful creatures with understanding and gratitude that transcended language. With trembling hands, he and Olivia signed the treaty, then handed the pen to Noah. As the document passed through generations of hands, Noah and Layla, Maya and Sophia, and finally young Maple, who would add the ceremonial final signature, Benjamin looked up at the sky, visible through the forest canopy. Clouds had parted, allowing a single shaft of sunlight to illuminate the gathering. "Do you think she knows?" he whispered to Olivia, his voice thick with emotion. "Maple, the original Maple. Do you think she somehow knows what came from that one moment when she chose compassion?" Olivia, her eyes bright with unshed tears, gazed out at the bears standing sentinel around the gathering, at the 4 generations of her family, at the treaty that would protect both species for generations to come. "I think," she said softly, "that compassion always knows its children." As young Maple pressed the pen to the treaty, adding the final signature to the historic document, a sound rose from the forest. Not the call of a single bear, but a chorus of them, a rumbling that seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. Scientists would later debate whether it had been coordinated or coincidental, intentional or instinctive. But to everyone present on that day, its meaning was unmistakable. Acknowledgement, acceptance, the sealing of a covenant between species that had begun 50 years earlier, when a mother bear had looked through a car window and recognized not a human baby, but simply a child in need, and had made a choice that would echo through generations of both their kinds. And somewhere beyond the reach of science, beyond the explanations of genetics and cognition, beyond the boundaries of what we believe possible, perhaps the spirit of that first compassionate bear looked down upon her legacy and saw that it was good. A legacy not of conflict and separation, but of connection, protection, and understanding. A legacy that began with a single act of kindness on a hot summer day in a forest that would never again be the same. A legacy that would endure as long as bears and humans shared this earth, reminding us all that in our deepest nature, beneath the differences of form and language and history, beats the same capacity for empathy that can, in a single moment of choice, change everything.